Greetings. Today's date is October 12th, 2019, and this will be a video about my initiation into healing. Well, in my late 20s, I had my first spiritual teacher by the name of Mother Zenobia Mayfield. And she always told me that I was a healer and that there was something special about my hands. She told me that I wasn't just a healer and it wasn't going to be something that I chose to do, but it was going to be something that I was going to be made to do. And lo and behold, she was right. So my initiation into healing, into the healing arts, began with the birth of my eldest son, born December the 11th, 1989, Brooklyn, New York, in the middle of crack era. I didn't have insurance at that time, and I figured, well, I'm around black people, I would be safe. So my water broke early. I just turned, well, I think around between about 26 weeks. So I was just 6 months pregnant with him. My water broke. I became septic, high fever, like 105 point something, close to, me not being here. And so they induced my labor, and I gave birth to a baby boy, 1 pound, 12 ounces. Now, they weren't expecting my son to live because he was septic too, because I became septic. The infection breaking because you're open, because your water is leaking, and it was like open. I was open for a couple of days, okay? There were no such thing as doulas around like they have now. I didn't know anything about a midwife. So I was pretty much by myself with the birth of my first child. I had one of my elder teachers that came to check on me, but here in New York City, new to New York City, newlywed, having birth with my firstborn, I was pretty much alone. So now, my first spiritual teacher, when I go back to her and call her Granny, that's Mother Zenobia, she said my firstborn would be a male child and he'll be a huge success, one of his own doing. So when I pushed out this baby boy, 1 pound, 12 ounces, they weren't expecting him to live. But I remember what Granny said. My firstborn would be a male child and he'll be a huge success, one of his own doing. And so I told the doctor, do what you can, do what you do, and I will do the rest. So I was in praying mode and I stayed in praying mode. Took them a while to get him stable before they can take him to the NIC unit. That's the neonatal intensive care unit, where they take the newborn babies, the preemie babies, babies that are just born, that that not are in the best shape health wise right after birth. So that's like the ICU for newborn babies. So they got him settled finally in the NIC unit, and I went down the following day to the NIC unit to see my baby. He was the spitting image of his dad and no bigger than my hand. From here to here, that was his size. I looked at him, tears welled up in me. I didn't know what to do. And I went a couple of, about the second day, I remember going down to the NIC unit, and there was a black male doctor, and he caught my eye because he was fine. I mean, real good looking. My heart was broken because I had this little, baby boy that was real so tiny, and I didn't know, what to do. But this beautiful black man caught my eye, and he pulled me to the side. He asked me my name, and I told him. He asked me which baby was mine, and I told him. And he said, "Well, I'm gonna tell you the babies that survive, the ones that you come see as much as you can and give as much attention to. Those are the ones that survive." And I made a mental note of that. So I made a point of that. And then I would come. I didn't miss a day. At the first day they released me from the hospital, I had to stay home for one day and recruit because of the maltreatment that I was given. And the hospital at that time was Kings County Hospital, Brooklyn, New York. Horror story. Another story, but I'm going to talk about the healing journey. So the following day, after I recouped at home, I began my healing journey with my baby boy. So many days I didn't have transportation. My husband was the only one working. Didn't have the 75 cents for the bus fare at that time or train fare. So I lived right across the street from Prospect Park. And many times I will walk. He was born in December. It was snow on the ground. So I will walk from Parkside to Kings County Hospital many days, and other days that I had bus fare, I would take the bus. So that was my journey. But I remember that first day of going, didn't have any money, and I was still open. And I'll bundle myself up, and I made that trek to see my baby in the NIC unit at Kings County Hospital. Now, one of the things I noticed in the hospital, my nose rings turning. One of the things that I noticed in the hospital is all these other little babies that were being born to crack mothers. They were just as tiny as my baby. Yeah, they did all kind of tests to see why my baby was born early. That's another story. He came early. I wasn't no crackhead. Never been around no crack. Ain't never seen no crack. I never smelt no crack. They talk about what it smelled like, but that wasn't me. So now, I'm looking at all these crack babies, and I see new babies in the morning. And then I come back that evening to see my baby. The baby's gone because the baby passed away. Or I come the next day, it'll be two more babies. One might stay for a few days. The other one, gone because the baby passed away. So now, I'm seeing all this death around my baby boy. My nose, excuse me. I'm going to keep it real. So I start waving my hands. He was in an open basket. They call it an open bed table with the light on him. And then they covered his eyes, because he's born so early because the liver isn't developed. So they get jaundice, and they put like a blue light on him. So the jaundice, it's with the light, it'll help him to eliminate the the yellowness in the skin so they can pee it out, so they can urinate it out to get it out their stream. So, many days he was really little, so he had the light on him, and I would start waving my hands, just brushing his energy like I'm doing just his energy. I didn't know what I was doing, didn't know why I was doing it, but I just did it. And many years later, I found out I was doing energy work. I would start seeing his figure with light around him, and I would just start doing it. I was very different from other mothers. And when a nurse got my baby, because they would change nurses every 2 to 3 days, whatever RN was assigned to that baby to keep them, clean them, feed them, change them or whatever they did. And the nurses, they saw my energy was very different from the other mothers. And certain nurses I really liked. And when they got my baby, they would have him all spit shine and clean. They would have his hair slicked to the side. Have him, they had the only thing they could put him on that time was that vitamin A and D ointment. And they would oil him down, have him slick to the side. And he was quiet, didn't move. He moved, but his energy was kind of quiet, like the first couple of weeks or so, about the first 2 or 3 weeks. And then his little personality started kicking in. And they would tease him and they would go, look at him, he already think he the king. And he did. He had attitude on that open bed table. And I mean, it was small. It was an open bed table, little baby on there with attitude. And I would still do his energy light, open up his energy, putting a protective shield around him, praying over him daily, twice a day. When I went, I prayed over him. I was there for his morning feed, and I would make sure I was there at 12 midnight before he crossed over. 12 a.m. before we crossed over into the next day. I made sure I was there. I did that every day until he came out of that hospital. So now, he's still in NIC unit. He was in the NIC unit for about 2 months. And I started getting tired. And they had him intubated. And I remember the day. And I fussed at him. I fussed at my baby in the NIC unit. I said, look, I'm tired. You gotta breathe on your own so you can get off of this intubator, because they had the tube down his throat and he would constantly push on it, push it out. Look, you gotta breathe on your own so they could take this tube out of your mouth. And that way you can eat your food, gain your weight so you can go home. I'm tired. Okay? That one of the doctors was in there, turned to me, and he said, yeah, talk to him. He was a brother too. He said, yeah, talk to him, tell him. And so I came that night before 12 midnight, 12 a.m., going to the next day and saw him, went home. And then the next day, when I went back to NIC, to the NIC unit to see my baby on the table, the open bed where he normally is, he wasn't there. Scared the shit out of me. My heart started pounding and dropping. The nurse was, don't worry, he's fine. I turned around. They say, he's right here. Turned around and looked. They had taken the intubation out of him and had on a nasal CPAP. And he was breathing on his own. And they had him in the incubator. And I started crying and boo-hooing like a baby because he heard me. And I was touching my little baby, feeling under his bottom and everything. And see, at this time, now with preemie babies, even when they're that small, they let the parents hold them. I never got a chance to hold my baby until he came out of the NIC unit into what they call the step-up unit, the B unit, where he was feeding. All he had to do was just gain his weight to get home. So I kept putting energy light around him every day, energy light around him, and then I started seeing his aura. And then I had a dream and I saw his whole auric field, and it was like a neon blue. And when I saw that neon blue around his whole energy, his whole outline of his body, then my spirit let me know he was fine. And that's the introduction story to me being an energy healing and worker. Thank you.